Folks, I need to call attention to a very important video that the one and only Dion put out yesterday. He was gracious enough to share a summary of a very, 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 very important book. The book is called Shut Up and Wait, and it was written by or authored by Space Monkey. Dion, I think this is a very important book that everybody needs to understand. It is rather rare. I think you may have the only edition, but why don't you share with the audience what it is, why it's so important, and what the hell do you mean by shut up and wait?
Howdy, Mike. Thanks for having me. I appreciate this. Making that video, it was risky, right? I've got a couple of videos that I call rants. It's like I go on a rant. I go, here's why I don't like retirement accounts for people who want to retire early, right? And people will forget the retire early part, and they'll just think, well, they're not all bad. Well, if you want to retire at an age, sure. And then I did one on LLCs, right? Whether you should have an LLC or not, the times you should, the times you shouldn't. And I've had a couple of the comments go, thousands of comments, we love your rants. But a few of the comments are, please don't do rants anymore. It sounds like you're being condescending.
No.
So in my next video, I explain condescending is when you talk down to somebody so that they clearly understand when I'm being condescending on purpose. So I was trying to think of a way, okay, how can I tell people, because we've talked about this several times, there's a step zero. Yeah. You don't start investing in rentals, take a bunch of money and buy one, right? You start investing in rentals by learning a market, learning to save, working on credit, learning a market, finding out your options with a lender, like months or possibly years before you're making offers on properties, because now you have the down payment, closing costs, reserves, money for immediate repairs. So I wanted to do a rant and make people laugh. Hopefully.
Nailed it.
Okay.
You made me laugh multiple times. So
very well because done. I've got this other book coming out on Dion's dating advice. That one's going to make people laugh. But,
my God.
Okay. It's blank, by the way. It's like that.
Blank. There's no advice.
Books like the book of the best things done by this political party, blank sheets, whatever party it is. So I have this rare edition of the book written by Space Monkey, and anybody who plays World of Warcraft knows who that is. But this book, since there's so much knowledge in there, it had to be a little bit bigger, right? And the chapters kind of go over some things that matter to people reaching financial freedom. That you don't start investing and reach financial freedom. You have to start investing, take steps, and then give those steps time. You have to shut up and wait, right? Buying a stock doesn't make you wealthy. Buying stocks, dollar cost averaging, diversifying in an index portfolio, and then waiting years for compound interest to have its effect. Shut up and wait. Now you could be wealthy. Rentals work the same way.
One of the stats you shared, or I guess Space Monkey put down that you shared, was the best portfolio ever was by people who owned it and are dead.
Yeah, there was 3 tiers to that. The highest performing stock portfolios belong to people who died. Right? So shut up and wait.
Not a lot of trading going on in that account, I'm guessing.
No, and there's no panic selling. Right? Yeah. There's a dip coming. I better get rid of this before the dip hits while you're in the dip selling. The next highest performing portfolio belonged to people who forgot they had them. So they're not waiting as long as dead people, but they are waiting. And
number three,
and this is true. People can Google this because, nothing on the internet is false. Abraham Lincoln said that. The third highest performing stock portfolio was operated by a cat named Orlando. Right? So and I don't know the statistic, but it's something high of the number of day traders who actually lose money compared to the few that we always hear about who made a bunch of money. So in the first chapter of the book of Shut Up and Wait, and the summary, right, the paraphrasing, because you can fit a lot of words in a book that big. It's talking about little Stephanie and how she wants to complain, because all of us have this person in our life who complains, and the person in my life is not Stephanie, it's Stella. And she, not to name anybody by name, but she's 26, right? Just got a decent job, doesn't have a savings, but absolutely complains every time the topic comes up that she'll never own a house. Her generation will never own a house. And then data doesn't matter. Point out more Gen Z at 25 own homes than Gen X and millennials did at 25. And no, that's That's mythical because it's not her, right? It's not impacting that person. And I said, I try to explain from the book, the theory from the book is, of course you can't buy a rental. You just started thinking about it. This is where you have a good job, but do you work overtime? Are you working for promotions? Maybe change companies to make more money, grow a side hustle, and then shut up and wait, right? That's going to take a couple of years to build up money. And don't increase your expenses, right?
Bingo.
Keep the same living expenses that you have now, increase your income, shut up and wait. And this is why I did it in the book, because I wanted to be able to tell people shut up without me telling them shut up, because that's rude. So if you shut up and wait, in a couple of years with increased income, same expenses, you're actually going to have money to deploy, right? You can't control what's going to happen to interest rates, prices, rents, anything in the market, but you can control what's happening with you. And we've said this many times before, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. We don't control the opportunity, we control the preparation, right? So that's right out of the book of Shut Up and Wait. And then there's a chapter in there that I wanted to cover for this little Johnny who invests in stocks, because I'm not a stock guy, but there's a chapter in there that basically says the same thing, went over those stock portfolios and then shutting up and waiting. And some of the things where people, there was more detail in there on some people will invest between 20 and 30 and then never invest again. Other people will invest between 40 and 60, so twice as much time, but have significantly less money because of the compound interest over decades. Is the time invested is more important than the amount invested, because you have to invest and then shut up and wait. Then really where this came from was these images. You know how expensive images are. Imagine the expenses of an image in a book like that.
Yes.
This image here prompted the author Space Monkey to create this book of, if you're looking at charts like this, there's two sides to this image. The people paying rent have seen a significant increase, which means the people collecting rents have seen a significant increase.
Yes, both are true. Yes.
So if you rent, and you've heard of F around and find out, right? This is shut up and wait and find out what happens to rent over time. But if you own a rental, what happens if you shut up and wait?
Especially if you're lucky enough to have 30-year debt like the US has, right? You have a fixed mortgage payment, at least principal and interest. And oh, by the way, a lot of people don't understand that the 30-year mortgage is not only fixed, but it's a one-way bet. If you lock in at 4%, it goes to 7. Do you care? Nope. But if you have a 7 and it goes to 4, do you care? Yep. And you go get that 4% money. Again, the 30-year mortgage is something we are very spoiled by and we're fortunate to have in the United States. Not every country has it. In fact, most don't. Most have 5-7-year arms, which force you to refi. And 30-year mortgage. So 30-year mortgage is not only owner occ, it's investors. And I don't think enough of us appreciate that, especially when you have a chart like that. And just think, if you bought a property 30 years, can you pull it back up? So 30 years ago would be 1993, if I'm doing my math right.
Yep.
So 1993 would be, where was it in this chart? Rent's probably what, 450 bucks?
450, yeah.
Yeah. And today it's 1,300. Annual mortgage payment, it cash flowed day one. So yeah, I mean, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and then some people might think that that's not a big enough span of time. So the book, of course, included data since we started tracking the data.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
1940.
Wow.
Right. So the numbers are a little harder to read. It's an older chart, but since 1940, that's rent trends.
Just because I can't read it. What was it in 1940? Like $70 or something? I can't read it.
I don't know that it's clear. It's not clear enough. It's because it pixelates as soon as you expand it.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
So it was cheap. It's much cheaper then than now.
Yeah, and the mortgage staying the same. And people will say, well, things like your property taxes go up. Sometimes they go down. And people will say, well, sometimes your property insurance goes up. And I referenced this when I was paraphrasing the book. My homeowner's insurance on 8 properties basically went up about 80% last year, an 80% increase at each one. Like there were some that were a little less and some that were a little more, but that was the average 80% increase.
Mhm.
It's about $60 a month.
Wow.
Rents increased $400 or $500 a month versus $60 a month. And then if you want to track, yeah, expenses go up. What happened in 2020 to interest rates? So what happened to those owners who purchased in 2015, 2018, who had 6 or 6.8% interest rates? And now we took it down to 3. So I had mortgages that were 17 or 18 on rentals that were cash flowing that are now $1,300 a month.
Yep.
And here's the great thing with those rent trends. When an expense of ours goes down significantly, we can refinance to a lower rate, or eventually our mortgage is paid off.
Mhm.
Does the rent go down? No.
No.
Most tenants don't even know if their property they're renting has a mortgage or not, because expenses don't set rents. Area average rents do.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So this book, Shut Up and Wait, it's sad that there's only one edition. What other gems does it have?
So the wrap up of the book talks about shutting up and waiting isn't sexy.
No.
It's actually kind of boring. And not too many people want to hear about it. What they want to hear about is you took a bunch of action in a short period of time and drastically changed your life. Instead of the Back to the Future theory of if you can go back into the past and change one small thing, the future will be very different. So over a period of time, you make small adjustments that are boring, that are not sexy, that within a decade, it make you able to escape the rat race. Financial freedom is possible for the people who are okay with boring.
Yeah.
It's possible for the people who need that excitement. It's just less likely.
I love it. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to your video below. Shut Up and Wait is a must-read book. Unfortunately, you're the only individual that has a copy. We got to get Space Monkey to publish it. But until then, I will reference your video because it was very well done. Where can people find you?
Right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom, where I don't do too much reading, although I did narrate some books for Audible that you can find. One rental at a time, 15 conversations with real estate millionaires. And I'm actually looking for some feedback on the people that have purchased it and listened to it. Let me know.
Yeah. How did
I do
Dion
better
do?
than a robot? Did I beat the robot?
Thank you, buddy.